Asa friends, it's me, Matt. Welcome back to Hobby Vomit and the Weekly Retch, a weekly video in which I talk about what movies I watched, what books I read, and what games I played last week. So let's get right into it and keep it short and sweet. What movies did I watch last week? I watched 0 movies last week. Yes, that's right, 0. We're gonna move, beyond that pretty quickly. But real quick, I just did want to say that next week I'm hoping there will be a lot more movies than normal because I'm going to. My Cinemark is doing an Oscar movie week in which you buy a little pass and you can go to see each of the Best Picture nominees once. So I'm hoping to see quite a few of those, as well as our Hobby Vomit movie club pick for this week is A Real Pain. So at the very least, I'll have something to say about those movies. So next week there will be at least one movie. So that's great. Moving on. Talk about books. All right, so books. I just finished a few minutes ago The Curse of the Mistwraith by Jenny Wirtz. I was reading this along with the Shelf Esteem read along on Discord and on Fable, and it took me a little bit. It took me about a month to read this book. I'm normally just a slow reader in general. I like to start a lot of books and then kind of wrap them all up at the same time. But Jenny Wirtz, her writing almost forces you to read slowly. It's very beautiful prose, but you can't speed read it. Not that I speed read, but even if I could, I can't even read it at my normal pace. You have to slow down and really enjoy it. So this did take me a little bit longer. You've probably heard me talk about this book for many weeks, but I finally wrapped it up. It was excellent. I'm so torn because I've talked about it in the last couple of weeks where I'm also doing the Malazan read-along. Sorry about that. Doing the Malazan read-along, also a Shelf Esteem, and hoping to do a little series with Ian. And both of these series I could see arriving in my favorite series of all time, like top 1 and 2, maybe 3. And so I'm so torn because I said that I was going to pause The Wars of Light and Shadow, which was Curse of the Mistwraith's first book. Curse of the Mistwraith was the first book of the Wars in Light and Shadow. And I was going to pause that while I finished Malazan and then go back to this. And I still think I'm going to do that, but man, I really don't want to because it was so good and I want to keep reading. But I'm so afraid that I'm going to do a disservice to one series or the other because I'm reading them concurrently. And they're both dense. They both require your pretty undivided attention. And so as much as it hurts me to put the series down, I think I'm going to. We'll see. I might change my mind, but I should have a review up for this in the next 2 weeks or so. I'm going to try and get that recorded because this upcoming Tuesday, will be my review of Best Served Cold. So this should be in the week following, I'm thinking. But excellent book. I wouldn't say I recommend this to everybody. You have to be okay with reading with intent and challenging yourself. It's not like an easy read, I wouldn't say. It's also not very challenging like character work. Nothing is black and white. It's all gray, and she forces you to make the decision of who's good, who's bad, and she doesn't really hold your hand for any of that stuff. But it also feels kind of like classical fantasy. There's wizards and light and dark, but she also subverts tropes a lot. So it's just very, very good, very good. And yeah, I'm kind of sad that it's over because I don't really want to put down that series, but we'll see what I do. Next, The Outsider by Stephen King. So I think this is new. I don't think we had started this. Maybe we did start this last week. I put this on my Weekly Retch last week, but Bree and I, The Outsider is the book that we're reading. It is by Stephen King, kind of part of the Holly Gibney series, I suppose. I think I did talk about it because I remember talking about the Bill Hodges trilogy. But it's excellent. Very, very good. Something about, I'm not huge into crime, but Stephen King's crime, it's just great. It's kind of feels like from different perspectives, which is nice. But yeah, the whole general plot of idea of this book is that What if you were accused of a crime and the police had sufficient evidence that you committed this crime, but you also have evidence that you didn't commit this crime and that you are innocent? How does that play out? And yeah, it's been great. There's been some really good twists and turns, and yeah, we're kind of just getting to the Holly part, and that's pretty exciting to pick her back up as a character. So yeah, we're really excited to finish this. We'll probably be finishing this in the next week, I imagine. We're about halfway through and we're cruising through. Stephen King is so easy to read that you just blast through it. So that's The Outsider. I have talked about a book called The Engineer. That's the second book in the Last Horizon series, which is I don't want to call it superheroes in space, but it's kind of like superheroes epic fantasy in space. It's just like a wizard who gets this ragtag crew on a starship, a sentient starship, and they're going around essentially just like completing quests, but it's more than that. But this I was listening to this on audiobook. So I read the first book on Kindle, was very pleasantly surprised at how much I liked it. Kind of started as like, oh, it'll just be my bedtime read. It's okay if I kind of, I don't want something that's going to keep my attention that much because I tend to fall asleep and then I have to go back. I'll read 20 pages, fall asleep, and realize I forgot the last 10 pages. So go back, and I just don't make a lot of progress that way. But I ended up loving it, finished it, decided to get the second one on audio because they were having a sale, I think. So I was just like, well, I'll just do it on audio. And I was really struggling, not because the performance was bad or anything. In fact, the performance is quite good. I just struggle with audiobooks. I don't know what it is. I just am bad at listening to them. My brain cannot concentrate, and then I fall off, and it's just like the going to bed thing. I will be listening, and then I'll blink, and 10 minutes have gone by, and I'm like, wow, I wasn't listening to that. Let's go rewind it, and then I do it again, and I just don't make a lot of progress. And so the last time I listened to it, I think I listened to like 45 minutes, and I sat afterwards, and I was like, wow, I really just did not retain anything I just listened to, and I feel like I'm doing it a disservice. So I decided to put the audiobook down. I bought the Kindle edition of it, and now this is my nighttime read, which, same deal. I got to pick something for my nighttime read, right? So as much as I'm enjoying this, it is still kind of a popcorn read. It's not challenging me as my brain, it's easy to read as I'm laying in bed. But I'm loving it. It's really good. I was kind of lukewarm on it during the audiobook, but I'm back in, and yeah, I'm trying to I think it's Will White is the author, and I really enjoy his writing style. He does a really interesting thing where there's the main character that you're following and then his ragtag crew. And it's very interesting because the chapters with him, you are first person. They're first person, but then every other chapter in the book is third person. So it's kind of an interesting jump between those two chapters, but actually I like it. I like it a lot, actually. So actually. So that's The Engineer. And then the last book I started is called The Immortal Investigations, I believe. I'm not too familiar because I just kind of picked it up and put it down. Need something to read for a few minutes. I planned on reading this, and I was like, I just need something to read for 5 minutes while I wait for something. And I didn't want to. I was in the middle of Curse of the Mist Wraith, and then you just can't sit down and read that for 5 minutes. So Immortal Investigations, I believe the author's name is Michael Cronk. He is the book guy on YouTube, so he published a series or a trilogy. Right now I think it's just the trilogy, but it's going to be up to 6 or 7, I think. I can't remember exactly what he said. But I don't know too much about it so far. I've only read one chapter. It's kind of I like it. It almost reminds me of like a Harry Dresden or a Buffy the Vampire Slayer so far, with like those kinds of characters. Feels like I'm reading a TV show like that. But likable enough characters. I think the first chapter's got a nice little hook. I don't know what the general plot of the book is. It seems like, just based off first chapter, we're in the real world, and this guy's a cop, and he's got a roommate, and the roommate's like, yeah, man, I'm going out on a date with a vampire. And he's like, oh, yeah, because she's up late at night. And he's like, oh, yeah, but then it's a real vampire. So I don't really know. I don't know how much more into fantasy it's going to get. I know it's a fantasy book, so I'm guessing a decent amount more, but I don't know. I guess I don't really know if it's our world or not yet, but I'm intrigued. It seems like it's going to be a really quick read, and that's kind of what I was wanting, especially coming out of Malazan and Curse of the Mistwraith. It's nice to have something really easy. So what am I going to read next week? I'm going to continue The Outsider. I'm going to continue The Engineer. And then I put it down for a second, but I'm going to pick back up Speaks the Nightbird, which is that Matthew Corbett book, the historical fiction during the witch trials. I decided to just pause that while I finish Curse of the Mistwraith, and that will be the book that I'm reading the physical copy of, and I'm going to kind of grind that one out now. And not in a bad way. It's great, but I'm going to focus on that as my main physical book read. So yeah, those are the books that I read last week and what I'm going to read next week. Games that I played, the last section. All right, what games did I play? I played Spirit Island again. I did the February solo challenge. That's up on the channel. I got to play River, Surge, and Sunlight, I believe is the Spirit name, and I got to play them with an aspect, the Sunshine aspect. First time I've ever played with an aspect, and that was really fun, kind of getting to see one of those old core spirits with a new coat of paint. So that was a lot of fun. I played on a level I don't normally play on, so there was a nice challenge there. I think I'm going to up it one more level next time, but had a great time. Always have a great time with Spirit Island. So yeah, that's on the channel if you want to watch the playthrough. Ian and I, we played Elder Scrolls Betrayal of the Second Era. This is the chip theory game, the big boy. It came in last week. I think we had played our first session. It's broken down into, a campaign is broken down to really like three-hour sessions. So you're playing like a 9-hour mini campaign. And you're playing over the 3 sessions. So the first 2 sessions are kind of just questing. You'll have a bunch of different quests that you can get. And the third session is usually like a big boss fight, leading up to a boss fight. So we finished our campaign. I played a healer. I think I played a high elf, and I played a warden. So my whole thing was that I could summon these like companions. So I had this celestial bear that just was a beast. He just tanked damage and dished out damage. He was he was next level. And then Ian, he played a knight. I can't remember the race that he was. It was something I've not heard of because it's like Burton or something like that. I'm not exactly sure, but he played a knight. So he was really our DPS. He'd go into every battle and like start off by shooting a bow and like acid spraying some enemies, and then he'd run in, and I could support him from the back line. So we ended up beating the campaign pretty flawlessly, I'd say. We were playing on the easiest setting difficulty because it was our first playthrough, and we're still learning the rules, and there are a lot of rules. If you're familiar with chip theory games, you're looking at a 100-page rule book that you need to just kind of internalize, which I will say it's probably their best rule book they've had. We didn't find ourselves referencing it too often, surprisingly. So I think they did a great job there. And yeah, I had a great time. I think I talked about last time my concerns with the 9-hour campaign, and I think that kind of became realized for me. I just because that's the type of gamer I am, I have a lot of games and I like to jump around. And so it's hard for me to look at a game and be like, I'm going to commit to 9 hours when I could just play a ton of other games and commit an hour and a half and then be done with it and move on to the next game. But if you like deep diving a game, there's insane amount of replayability in this game and different builds and different quests. And yeah, I had a really good time. I'm excited to play it again. I think we're going to play it in our second campaign in the next couple of months. So I'll probably talk about it again then. So yeah, that is Elder Scrolls Betrayal of the Second Era by Chip Theory Games. I played SETI, which I don't remember what it stands for. Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, I want to say. This is a Euro by CGE. I played this with Brooks, who you may have seen on the channel for our movie discussion, JPOC. We played we kind of just demoed a game on Tabletop Simulator. And this is just a pretty typical Euro, but it has man, it's just one of those Euros that it hits just right with all the mechanics. So you're putting out your little pieces on a board that rotates. You're going to visit the different planets. You can then so first you're like looking at those planets. Then you can send a satellite or a rover down on those planets. Those might give you more money or more energy or more cards, which you can then play to do more things. And as you play, you'll discover 2 of the 5 different alien races that come in the game. So you'll only discover 2 of them each game, and you don't know which ones those are. So about a third of the way through the game, you'll start flipping those, and those add some new mechanics, which are very fun. So yeah, I have nothing bad to say about this game. It's excellent. Loved it. Can't wait to play more of it. So I did order a copy of it because I'm trying not to buy games right now, but man, when that juicy Euro hit, you got to order it. So the next game I played, I got 2 more. I played The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, the trick-taking game. Yeah, you know, I've talked about trick-taking before. A lot of my friends are getting into them now, so I'm playing them a little bit more often. I'm not a huge fan of trick-taking games. I think they're fine. I don't think there's... I just think that's it. I don't dislike them. I don't love them. They just fall into game. Did I play a game? Yes, I did. And that's kind of how I feel about this one, too. I think this one's maybe a little bit better than, like, The Crew. But this is a cooperative trick-taking game. So at the beginning, I do think what's cool about this, there's different missions. And on each mission, you're playing through the movie or the book. I'm sorry. You're playing through the book, The Fellowship of the Ring. And each mission, it's going to thematically have characters that you need to play and assign to players. So I played this a little bit with Ian, and so the first mission, I was Frodo, and he was Gandalf, I think. I can't remember exactly, but something like that. And so each character on their character card, when it gets dealt out to you, they have a goal. So like Frodo, if I have Frodo, I have to win X amount of, I think one of the suits is rings, and I have to win 4 of the 5 ring cards. And if I don't, then we lose the scenario and we have to restart. So every character has a goal. And so that's how they kind of dish out these missions, is that every mission or quest or whatever you want to call them, every mission that you go through has different characters, and you assign those out to players, and then you try and complete those. Now, 2-player, that's what Ian and I played. We played 2-player, and to simulate a 3rd player, there's like a card pyramid. So you have some information, and one person controls that card pyramid. I didn't love that. It felt more like it took away from the spirit of the game. It felt more like I was playing a puzzle game. And in that case, I think I would actually enjoy that a lot more solo. But I felt like we had too much information and too much control. We breezed through the missions pretty easily. I think it really would shine either at 3 or 4. Or honestly, with that pyramid, I think with 1, it would feel more like a puzzle, less like a trick-taking game. But I like doing those types of things solo. So I ordered that as well, and I want to try that solo. I figure it was a cheap price point. If I don't like it, I'll just move it along. So yeah, Lord of the Rings trick-taking game. And then lastly, I played some Hoplomachus Victorum. This is another chip theory game. So Hoplomachus Victorum, you're like it's basically a gladiator. You're playing as a gladiator, and you're moving around this world map and fighting in these different arenas, trying to take down what are called primuses. So all you're choosing a hero, and you get stats, and you're recruiting these units that you're gonna, when you move around the world, you're gonna participate in these bloodshed events or these sports events by putting your units out against an AI's unit. It's a solo only game. And depending on where you are in the world, what country you're in, the arena will change. They have special units that are local to that arena that have special abilities. And basically your goal is to kill enough of these primuses, which are heroes you didn't choose, kind of like mini bosses, and then eventually go fight the Scion, the big bad. And I played about half a campaign of that. It used to be just like Elder Scrolls. This is also Chip Theory Games. Just like Elder Scrolls, it used to be about 9 hours to beat this game. But in the newest Kickstarter that just delivered, which I got, they added they call it Quick Torum mode, in which it cuts that in about a third. So it's about 3 hours to beat 4 hours maybe. And so I got to play about half of that. I've got set up on my table over there. Played about half of that, and then I was like, I got to teach Ian this game because I think Ian will love this game. So I played along with him. I kind of ran the game on Tabletop Simulator while he learned it, and he's going through it now, and he's having a great run. And so we didn't finish either game, but I think we'll probably finish that up this week. I have no doubt he's going to clap that Primus booty. And yeah, I think we're going to get the dub. I don't know about myself. We'll see if I get the dub. I'm trying, but yeah, I'm not doing as good. So we'll see. But it's a lot of fun. It is dice rolling combat, so you have to be okay with that. If you're playing other Chip Theory games, you probably are. Because Too Many Bones, there's dice. Elder Scrolls, there's dice. Cloudspire, there's dice, though admittedly not as much. And Burn Cycle, there's dice. So really, you kind of know what you're getting into, but you can certainly just lose to luck. But it's really thematic. It's a beautiful looking game, and yeah, I've just been having a lot of fun with that. So that is it. We went over all the movies I watched, which was a big 0. Books I read. I finished a book this week, so that's always great. And then games that I played. So what's coming up next week, what's coming up next week on Monday, which is the movie day, nothing this week. Following week, we're going to have our discussion for A Real Pain. That's going to be bi-weekly, our movie club discussion. So we're taking the off week this week. The following week will be a Real Pain discussion. Books that I'm going to read, I went over. I'm going to continue Speaks the Nightbird. Bree and I are going to hopefully finish The Outsider. I'm going to keep working on The Engineer and Immortal Investigations. And then games, I don't know. Hoplomachus Victorum, that'll be the one. Ian and I tonight are going to be recording our playthrough of the Dorfromantic board game and posting that on Thursday probably. And then some other news, just general news. Ian and I, we're still brainstorming on how some of the big things we want to do, not big things, just some of the things we want to implement on the channel. So this past week, you'll have noticed Ian put up his review of, that's the other thing, not to interrupt myself, but books. I'm going to be posting my best served cold book review on Tuesday. So yeah, you may have seen Ian's book review of Mistborn. So we kind of rolled out our BARF system, which is our review system for books and maybe movies too, but really for books. And then what we're also wanting to do is for book content, because Tuesdays are kind of like our book review days, and Wednesdays we don't have anything right now. I think Wednesdays are going to become book discussion days. So what's a book discussion? A book discussion, Ian and I are going to be reading through Malazan together, and each Malazan book is broken down into parts. They're called books within books, but I'm going to call them parts just because it's easier to not get confused about books within books. So each one's broken into 4 parts other than the first book. So starting with book 2, which is called Dead House Gates, which has 4 parts, we are going to read those, read part 1, and then we will do a discussion on that on every Wednesday, essentially. So every week we'll have read the next part, and then we'll discuss it. So we're just going to talk about what happened, what we thought, what we think is going to happen. And yeah, I'm just keeping it open for now, just a discussion on it. So those will be extremely spoiler filled. So really it's either for if you are also taking this Malazan journey, then you'll have a resource you can talk about it with us. Or if you've already read Malazan, sometimes it's fun to listen to someone who's reading through it on their first time through talk about it. So, but really it's also for us. It's a big series. I think Ian is a lot smarter than me, so it's going to be fun to have that conversation with. I feel like every week it's going to be me, Ian talking a lot, and me going like, I didn't even notice that. That happened in what we read. It's going to be a lot of that. But that, maybe that will be fun. I'm the everyday man, dumb. And so then you get some intellect as well. So we're hoping to do that on Wednesdays. He's going to start doing the first book, Gardens of the Moon. That's the first book of Malazan. He is going to do... That one's a little bit different because there are 7 parts in that book. but they're a lot shorter. So he's going to do that in the same fashion by himself, because I've already read Gardens of the Moon, and then we'll start together on Dead House Gates. So he's going to read like parts 1, 2, and 3, and then put out a video or something like that. But he's also reading Dungeon Crawler Carl with his wife, and I think he's going to do some discussion videos on that as well. So a lot of upcoming content for books. Tuesdays are now going to be book reviews, which I think is what we've stuck to because we've only had one review. And now Wednesdays will be book discussions. And I think now the last thing is Saturdays. So Saturdays right now we have nothing. If adding now the book discussions, Saturdays are only open day of the week where we don't have anything to post. So we're going to have that just be our overflow day. So maybe if Ian is reading Dungeon Crawler Carl and Malazan, wants to post a discussion on both, he'd post one on Wednesday and the other one on Saturday. Or maybe we've got 3 book reviews that week. We'll post one on Tuesday, one on Saturday. As long as there's just something. We're just trying to keep it to one video a day just to not flood you with unnecessary content. But remembering that we're kind of doing this for ourselves, so we're just excited to put out some content. I know we watch each other's videos. I hadn't seen his Mistborn review until he put it up, so it's really fun to watch each other's content. So yeah, we're kind of just really doing what we are enjoying and what interests us. And yeah, if you've watched my intro video, that's kind of what this channel is all about. It's kind of just a little video diary for us, and we hopefully it's entertaining enough for you to enjoy it as well. But I think that's it for now. It's a little bit long because I kind of talked about my upcoming plans, but yeah, I appreciate you tuning in, and we will see you next week for the Weekly Retch. Goodbye.